HOA Karen threw bricks at my car. Then 5 police cars showed up and took her away. Part 1. They say the first brick is always symbolic. For me, it came through my windshield at 2:14 a.m., and it had Karen's name written all over it. Not literally, of course, but after 3 months of fake citations, whispered threats, and that ridiculous laminated HOA enforcement badge she wore like a crown. Let's just say she wasn't exactly hard to identify. My name is Marcus Dean. I'm a civil engineer by profession, a car restoration hobbyist by passion. Last year, I finally moved into my dream neighborhood. Quiet streets, wide driveways, and just enough space to work on my vintage silver '69 Mustang Fastback without drawing too much attention, or so I thought. Until Karen moved in 2 doors down, it started small, as these things always do. A note on my porch: per HOA guidelines, please refrain from performing mechanical work in driveways. I laughed when I read it. There was no HOA. That's why I bought the place. No meddling rules about paint shades or mailbox symmetry. Still, I played nice. I moved the car inside the garage for a few days, despite the heat, and waved when I saw her walking that yappy dog of hers, leash tight in one hand and clipboard in the other. She didn't wave back. Then came the violation reports. Printed in Times New. Roman bordered in fake gold foil, slipped under my door like jury summons. Oil drips detected. Please resolve within 24 hours. Unregistered vehicle visible from street. This is not permitted in Blue Ridge Estates. Non-compliant exterior accent lighting. Soft white only, not cool white. I ignored them at first until the letters started arriving at my workplace. That's when I realized this wasn't just about rules. This was personal. I confronted her one Saturday morning. She was out front watering her rose bushes like they were national monuments. "Karen," I said, walking up calmly, "I appreciate your attention to detail, but there's no HOA here. No board, no enforcement. This is harassment." She didn't blink. She just tilted her head. "I'm acting under the authority of the Blue Ridge Property Oversight Committee." "There is no such committee." I said. "It's voluntary," she replied, "but respected, not by anyone on this street." Her smile was pure plastic. "We'll see about that." And she turned back to her hose. Later that week, I received a text from my neighbor, Trina Yo Karen's walking around with a tape measure. "She was in your driveway while you were out." I checked my ring cam footage. Sure enough, Karen crouched down beside my car, measuring the distance between the tires and the curb, muttering to herself. That night, I installed 2 more cameras. On the third week, someone tried to tow my car illegally. A flatbed showed up at 6 a.m. I caught the driver and demanded his work order. He claimed a community supervisor reported an abandoned vehicle. I showed him the title, registration plates. He backed off fast. I checked my cameras again. Karen had called the tow company herself. That was the final straw. I went to the city records office and pulled everything I could find on Blue Ridge Property Oversight Committee. Nothing, not a filing, not a registration, not even a meeting agenda. Karen's power completely fabricated, but her delusion entirely real. Then came the brick. It was a Monday night, cool, quiet, uneventful. I'd spent the evening reattaching a chrome bumper piece and watching the sky turn purple behind the trees. By 11, I locked the garage, set the alarm, and went to bed. At 2:14 a.m., the crash shook the house. Glass screaming metal. A car alarm howling into the darkness like a wounded animal. I ran to the window. My Mustang sat in the driveway. Windshield shattered, bricks scattered across the hood, paint gouged down to the metal. And standing at the edge of the lawn, still holding a brick in one hand, was Karen. She was screaming, "You're ruining our property values. That car is a violation. You people don't belong here." I grabbed my phone and hit record. Then I dialed 911. The dispatcher didn't hesitate. "Suspect still on property." Affirmative, armed. "She's holding bricks. Multiple units en route." By the time I got outside, barefoot, shaking, camera still rolling, Karen was mid-rant. "You're not allowed to work on junk cars in this neighborhood. It's against the rules." "What rules?" I asked, stepping forward. "Your fake ones?" Her eyes snapped to me. "You think you can intimidate me because you're loud and big?" And I held up my phone. "You're being recorded. Everything's going to the cops." To my lawyer, to the press, she froze, but only for a second. Then she threw the brick in her hand, not at me, but at the car again. The thud echoed down the street, and then came the sirens. 5 police cars flooded the block. Lights painted every house red and blue. Officers jumped out, weapons low, but ready, commanding her to step back. Drop the brick, hands behind her head. Karen tried to explain, tried to shout, tried to blame me. He's harassing the neighborhood. He's working on vehicles. He's filming me. He has a non-standard bumper. But they weren't listening because my neighbors were now pouring out of their homes. Trina, Bob, Camille, the whole damn cul-de-sac, and every single one of them pointed at Karen and said the same thing. It's her. She's been terrorizing this block for months. They cuffed her in my driveway. One officer handed me a clipboard. We'll need your video, and a statement. I nodded. Micah from next door whispered to his mom. She's the one who told me my toy drone was a felony. His mom just shook her head, and in the middle of the flashing lights, broken glass, and ruined paint, I realized the whole street had been waiting for this. They just needed someone to say, enough, part 2. Karen always walked around like the law was something she could wear: a fake badge, a clipboard, a voice just loud enough to override logic. But that night when they closed the cruiser door on her and drove off with sirens low and steady, she didn't look like authority. She looked scared. I didn't feel vindicated. Not yet, because I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the street looked like a scene from a movie shattered glass police tape. Neighbors in lawn chairs quietly watching as crime scene techs took measurements around my Mustang. The detective in charge, Officer Nunez, handed me the case summary. Charges filed: felony vandalism, property damage over $5,000. Heroin, criminal mischief, harassment, disorderly conduct, impersonation of a public official, hate crime enhancement pending investigation. That last one caught me. I looked up hate crime. He nodded. We pulled her past reports. Almost all of them were directed at you, Camille's mixed-race family, and the Johnsons with the pride flag. There's a pattern. The DA's reviewing everything. My stomach tightened. I hadn't realized how far it had gone. But maybe that was the point Karen wanted us to feel. Like it was just about oil stains and bumpers, not skin or identity or difference. But the bricks had told the truth. That night, the block held a meeting in Trina's garage. Not official, not planned, just 25 neighbors folding chairs and the collective energy of people who were done being afraid. Camille stood up first. I don't know about y'all, but I got fined $40 last year for putting up Halloween decorations before October. She said it was a seasonal deviation. The group laughed, but it was tight, bitter. She made me cry, Camille added softly, in my own front yard. Then Bob from across the circle. She told my grandkids their chalk drawings were property defacement. Micah raised his hand. She took my drone. Every story landed like a nail in a coffin. Karen hadn't just crossed the line. She built an empire of fear around it, and we let her, because she used the right fonts, the right tone, the right threats, until the night she made one mistake too big to bury under gold foil paper. I pulled out a folder of documents I'd compiled from the city records office. No HOA, no oversight board, no legal authority. I passed them around. She made it all up. Then I showed the camera footage projected on Trina's garage wall. Not just the bricks, but weeks of past violations. Her snooping, her pacing, her measuring tape. Silence fell. Then Tricia whispered what everyone was thinking. What do we do now? We formed the Blue Ridge Coalition that night. No titles, no president, no fake rules, just one purpose. Dismantle Karen's legacy of control and make sure it never happens again. The next day, I filed for a civil restraining order. Camille and 3 others joined. We filed a neighborhood injunction blocking Karen from issuing any further compliance letters to residents. Trina contacted the local news. By Thursday, the story hit: fake HOA leader, arrested for vandalizing neighbor's car community, says pattern of harassment may lead to hate crime charges. They aired my footage, interviewed Camille, showed Karen's forged compliance slips, and for the first time, Blue Ridge Estates had a voice. Karen's arraignment was surreal. She stood in county court in a beige cardigan, visibly trembling, flanked by a public defender and 0 supporters. The judge read the charges. She pleaded not guilty. I stood outside with Trina and Camille afterward. Giving our official statements to the press, I said only what mattered. We're not here because of a car. We're here because a woman used lies, fear, and fake power to control people who never gave her permission. She didn't expect us to stand up. But now we are. That night, Camille texted me. The mailbox flyers stopped. For the first time in 2 years, my porch feels like mine. I stared at her message a long time. Because when Karen was arrested, they didn't just remove a criminal. They removed a wall, and behind that wall were people finally breathing again. Part 3, Karen built her kingdom on paper. Literally printouts with fake logos, flyers claiming authority, slips of paper taped to doors and tucked into mailboxes, each one a weapon disguised as a rule. She built fear out of fonts and signatures she forged herself. And now those papers were being used as evidence. 2 days after her arraignment, the DA's office contacted me for a deposition. It wasn't just about the bricks anymore. It was about everything. The letters, the threats, the patterns, the targeting. They were preparing for trial and they wanted to show intent, not impulse. Because what Karen did wasn't random. It was a campaign. As I sat across from the assistant district attorney, I handed over a box. Inside were 42 violation slips collected by neighbors over 2 years. A ledger with names, dates, and fines Karen had demanded. Photos of her self-made Blue Ridge Oversight ID badge. Screenshots of her messages threatening reports to police and child services. The ADA looked up. You realize this could justify organized harassment charges. I nodded. I also found 3 neighbors who paid her. The ADA blinked. She was collecting money under threat of escalating to community enforcement action. She whistled. We've got something here. While the city prepared its case, we prepared ours. Camille, Trina, Bob and I filed a joint civil suit on behalf of the Blue Ridge Coalition. We sued for property damage, emotional distress, and impersonation of legal authority. We didn't just want compensation. We wanted the truth in writing in court records where it would outlive every forged flyer Karen had ever printed. Word spread fast. Local journalists ran follow-ups. A reporter from the county paper called the story one of the most bizarre suburban abuses of fake power in recent memory. They asked me what Karen had gotten wrong. I told them she thought silence meant agreement. She thought compliance meant weakness. But mostly she forgot that people talk. And when enough of us start talking, that paper throne she built collapses. Then something unexpected happened. People outside our neighborhood started sharing their own Karen stories. A woman from 3 blocks over emailed. She came to my door in 2022 and told me my curtains violated HOA reflectivity code. I cried. I was 68. Another family from the next street wrote, she tried to tell us the color of our autistic son's play tent was too aggressive for the neighborhood. We added them to the case. When we finally walked into civil court 3 weeks later, we were 19 plaintiffs, strong Karen. She was alone in the courtroom. She looked different. Thinner pale, clutching a small notebook and wearing glasses she didn't need. Her attorney tried to argue that she believed she had informal authority, that she was motivated by neighborhood care, and that she regrets the escalation. But then we played the video of her screaming bricks, flying, and my windshield shattering under her hand, and the courtroom shifted. This wasn't about concern, this was about control. Camille gave testimony. She told me to repaint my daughter's wheelchair ramp, said it was too medical looking. Trisha added hers. She took my pride flag down 3 times, then fined me for emotional provocation. I paid her. I wish I hadn't. Micah stood beside me in front of the judge. He pointed at a photo of Karen's fake ticket. She said my drone was airborne misconduct. She said I could go to jail. The courtroom laughed. The judge didn't. In closing, I spoke calmly. I moved to Blue Ridge for peace, for space, for the freedom to fix my car without judgment. Instead, I got surveillance, control, fear. Pause, not from the government, not from a real HOA, from one woman who decided she could make the rules if no one stopped her. I held up one of her flyers. She printed this on a home printer and called it power. She thought we'd shred it and forget it, but now it's evidence. Now it's the paper that brings her empire down. We won $124,000 in total, damages across all plaintiffs, court costs, a permanent restraining order, and the judge's written decision explicitly stated, The defendant created an environment of coercion through fraudulent authority, resulting in collective harm. This was not neighborhood concern. This was systemic impersonation. Karen left the courtroom without a word. No apology, no eye contact. But it didn't matter because the ink on that ruling would outlast every lie she ever wrote. Back on Blue Ridge Circle, things changed fast. The mailboxes stayed clear. The porch decorations stayed up. The kids drew chalk murals that stretched across driveways and sidewalks without a single complaint. Micah started calling our block the Brick Line, not because of the bricks Karen threw, but because that's where she broke. But we weren't just celebrating, we were building the Blue Ridge Coalition. Met weekly now, not to control, but to care. We checked on elderly neighbors, we helped repaint Camille's ramp with bright sky blue. We hosted our first block cookout. Trina made a sign, no badges, just burgers and me. I rebuilt my Mustang new windshield fresh coat. Shiny chrome one decal on the back bumper that said no fake HOA. People honked when they passed. Karen's house went up for sale. It sat unsold for months. Eventually someone bought it and painted the mailbox rainbow. No one said a word except Micah, who whispered to me, "She'd lose her mind," I laughed. "I hope she's watching." He grinned. "She is, but this time we're the ones writing the rules." Part 4. I used to think our street was just another piece of suburban sprawl, identical roofs, clipped lawns, the kind of place where you waved but never spoke, lived but never really connected. But that was before Karen, before the bricks, before we realized silence could be just as dangerous as noise. Now, Blue Ridge wasn't just a street, it was a signal flare, and the whole city was starting to see it. The first call came from a nearby neighborhood association in Willow Heights. Their president reached out to me through our coalition email. "Hi Marcus, we heard about what happened on your block. We think we have a similar problem. Could you come talk to us?" I wasn't a lawyer, I wasn't a politician, I was just the guy with the shattered Mustang. But somehow that made me exactly the person they wanted, because I knew what fake power looked like, and I knew how fast it could spread. So I went. Camille came with me. So did Bob. We stood in a community center under fluorescent lights facing a dozen nervous faces. They told us about their compliance leader, a man who wasn't elected, who posted anonymous notes about fitness standards and lawn shade consistency. One woman whispered, "He told me my mother's wheelchair ramp looked like a code violation. Said neighbors are starting to notice." I looked her in the eye. "He's not enforcing anything. He's hoping no one questions him." Then I passed out the packets we'd made. How to spot a fake HOA, how to demand transparency, how to fight back together. Camille shared her story. The room grew quiet, then loud with resolve. They formed a committee that night, not to punish, to protect. That was the first ripple. Within a month, 3 more neighborhoods reached out. One had a woman who tried to charge kids park entry fees. Another had a man who fined someone for using wind chimes. And in one cul-de-sac, a group called Yard Harmony Patrol turned out to be a single man with a printer and a vendetta. They all had one thing in common. They relied on people being too polite or too scared to say, "You don't speak for us." But now Blue Ridge was teaching them to say it out loud. Our coalition expanded. We built a website, started a podcast. Camille became the de facto spokesperson. She had a gift for explaining big ideas in plain language. In one interview, she said Karen didn't break the law at first. She bent it over and over until we stopped noticing. We let her set the tone, but tone isn't truth. And what we lost in comfort, we gained in clarity. That line went viral. Local officials started to take notice. City Councilwoman Elena Park proposed a new bill. The Community Clarity Act requires full transparency of any neighborhood group issuing guidelines, criminalizes impersonation of official boards, mandates third-party review of any fines levied without city authorization. She called it the Karen Clause. It passed with 91% approval. Meanwhile, back on Blue Ridge, life was simpler. No more flyers, no more fake warnings, just real people helping each other. Bob's grandson built a little free library next to the sidewalk. Micah's drone club met twice a month in the cul-de-sac. Trina's daughter painted murals on garage doors, colorful, defiant, joyful. Nobody asked permission. Nobody needed it. One night I stepped out to watch the Mustang under the stars. Micah was riding circles in the driveway on his scooter. "Hey, Dad," he asked, "you think she ever watches our street now?" I didn't hesitate. "She might." He leaned his head back, squinting like he could see beyond the trees. "Good," he said. "I hope she does. I hope she sees it's better." And it was not perfect, but honest. We didn't pretend anymore. We didn't hide behind fences or fear. We stood beside one another. And the bricks that once broke us, they now sat in a line near the entrance to the block. Coated in clear resin, turned into a monument, a neighbor built it, a plaque sat in front. Here fell the weight of false power. Here stood those who said no. Blue Ridge rebuilt. In truth, Karen never came back. Her house sold. The new owners landscaped with sunflowers and solar lights. Camille brought them muffins. Trina invited them to movie night. They hung a rainbow flag under their porch light. No one said a word except Bob, who muttered, "Looks good," and that was that. Part 5. The night we lit up the brick monument with solar lamps, nobody said we won, because it wasn't about victory anymore. It was about restoration, about taking something broken and turning it into a reminder that no one gets to rewrite the rules of respect unless we all agree. And this time we did. It had been 6 months since Karen was arrested, 5 months since we won the civil case, 3 months since her house officially changed hands and all remnants of her oversight committee were wiped from every mailbox, web page, and mind. And yet her legacy lingered not as fear anymore, but as a cautionary tale. Because power, even the fake kind, leaves a residue. I still got questions. A lot, emails, calls, even invitations to speak at community forums. One in particular stuck with me, a high school civics teacher named Angela from Denver. "My students read your story online. Would you be willing to do a virtual session on what happens when communities wake up?" I agreed. And that afternoon, staring into a sea of teenage faces on a Zoom screen, I said something I hadn't realized. Until that very moment, Karen didn't throw a brick at my car. She threw it at the idea that we could live side by side and be different. She thought she could break that with intimidation and a clipboard, but all she really did was give us a reason to talk. After that, I helped launch a nonprofit with Camille and Trina. We called it Paper Doesn't Equal Power. Our mission helped neighborhoods identify and dismantle false authority before it hardens into fear. We provided a legal guide for verifying HOA legitimacy, trainings on recognizing fraudulent compliance notices, emotional recovery support for communities that had been manipulated. Within 4 months, we'd supported 17 different neighborhoods across 3 states. Blue Ridge became the first listed model site. Our motto hung on the homepage. The moment you question fake rules, you begin to write your own future. Back home, life was calm. Kids played, late flags flew freely, and my Mustang fully restored chrome, shining like a mirror. But I kept the gouge under the left fender. Just one. People asked why I didn't fix it. I always gave the same answer, because some scars are proof you made it through. One evening, Micah and I stood on the sidewalk as the sun dipped gold behind the rooftops. The block was alive with motion, lawn chairs, laughter, chalk drawings. Someone had set up a makeshift projector and was playing a Pixar movie on their garage door. Micah leaned against me. "Dad, yeah, you think people will remember what happened here?" I looked around. Neighbors waved, kids spun in circles. No flyers, no whispers, no fear. "They already do," I said. Then I pointed at the plaque beneath the resin-coated bricks. "We do not fear paper, we respect people." He read it, smiled. "Can I build something next to it?" "Sure." "What were you thinking?" He grinned. "A bench for when people come to read it." We built it that weekend. Sturdy wood, no HOA approval needed. Camille painted the backrest with bold black letters, "The Bench of Belonging." And soon people started sitting there, not just to rest, but to talk, to meet, to remember. Months passed. Karen's name faded from conversation. Not from denial, but from healing. We no longer needed her story to define us, because we'd written our own. Then came the letter, certified mail, from Karen herself. I opened it with slow hands, unsure what I'd find. Inside, "Marcus, I've spent months in mandated therapy. Part of the court's judgment, I never expected to write this. But the truth is, I was wrong. I created fear where there was none. I saw difference as disorder. I thought control was the same as care. I know I can't undo what I did, but I hope that by admitting it, I can at least stop the damage from spreading. I watched your neighborhood rebuild. I saw the bench. You made something I never could, a place people want to stay. I'm sorry, Karen, I sat with it for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me had never expected it. Not remorse, not growth. But maybe the ripple effect had reached even her. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The real reply was outside my window. Micah teaching a new neighbor to fly a drone. Bob showing kids how to patch a bike tire. Trina organizing a night market, and Camille leaning against the bench smiling as someone read the plaque. That's how we rewrote the rules, not with bricks, not with badges, but with belonging. The end.